Kamala Harris has thrust herself back in the limelight with the release of her new book, where she discusses, of course, how she lost the presidential election. But apparently none of it is her fault. And that's what's being discussed today with Andrew Schulz and Charlamagne Tha God. Before we get to the clips, don't forget to like and comment and subscribe on this video so we can break through the algorithms. Here we go.
It's crazy that, like, with Trump dropping the ball on so many of the things that he promised, that Democrats haven't been able to, like, pick up steam. Well, what is that?
But, yo, we've said that. We said this a million times. Yes, we know Trump is going to fumble. But the Democrats don't have the team to pick up the ball.
But why is that? And it seems that, like, people are, I don't know, maybe they're angry. I don't know. There's just, like, a lot of...
I got thoughts. I got plenty of thoughts on that. I've said it a million times. I think because they haven't acknowledged the big lie yet.
Yeah.
Well, now Kamala has done it. In her book, 107 Days, the original Sin did it. Corinne Jean-Pierre got a book coming out. But more Democrats have to acknowledge the big lie.
No, they can't.
Throw that old regime under the bus. And literally, it needs to be blown up.
Bro, like, the amount of people, let me tell you how what is it when you're not willing to reflect? You're just, when you ignore your problems. What is that word?
Not having any mirrors? I don't know.
Yeah, like, no, but literally it's like, oh God, I can't believe I'm forgetting this word. But the lack of, like, self-reflection or
self-awareness.
Yeah, self-awareness, or like you just not facing your problems.
Accountability.
You're ignoring the lack of accountability or whatever it is. Basically, the amount of, like, DMs or tweets or whatever I'll get, right, about people that literally think that, like, me, Joe Rogan, and Theo Vaughn are responsible for Trump becoming president, that don't think that the fact that Democrats ran a dead guy and then a woman that couldn't talk had anything to do with it, just shows that they're not willing to be in reality. Like, all these people are just like, let's ignore what's happening in our house and let's point blame, let's scapegoat, let's find out what's going on in the world. It's like, you ran a dead guy that we all knew were dead. You gaslit us into thinking that he wasn't. And now you're writing books about how he was. And then you ran a very unpopular candidate that said she was going to do all the same things as the dead guy.
You ran the running mate of one of the most unpopular presidents ever. And you gave her 107 days to do it when her approval ratings was lower than him. So not only does she have to dig herself up out of that grave, she got to do some allow me to reintroduce myself shit. And that's impossible to do in 107 days. That's why I genuinely enjoyed her book, man. I enjoyed her book because there was accountability there. I've seen people say it's a book full of excuses. It is. Yeah. But like, who doesn't have excuses when they lose, right? And by the way, I wouldn't even call them excuses so much as to say...
Does she acknowledge not coming on the pods?
Yes.
That's another revision.
She has a whole chapter about Joe Rogan, and she said people completely that up. She actually said, and hold on, let me make sure I'm getting that right. She actually said it was Rogan's team that was not being honest about that situation.
Yeah, I bet.
Let me make sure.
I mean, I know for a fact her team has lied about us, like 100% fact.
Yeah, she said she wanted to appear on Rogan's podcast on October 25th, 2024, but he chose to interview Donald Trump instead. She alleges that Rogan later made false claims that her campaign had placed restrictions on topics for the interview. In late 2024, Harris' campaign made an offer for a 1-hour off-site interview in D.C., but Rogan insisted on an open-ended in-studio conversation in Austin, which her team rejected. Aides suggested that some of her more progressive advisors were concerned about the optics of an appearance on Rogan's podcast, given his history of controversial remarks. She talked about all of this in the book.
But it's just so, like, it's just so interesting that, like, the revisionist history is that, like, Trump wins because he comes on these comedians' podcasts,
as opposed to the other side just being bad.
Though the other side was also invited onto. Like, how are we responsible for their bad decisions?
You're going to be talking about this till the day you die.
Who is me?
Yes.
Why?
Because it's actually a moment in time, whether we realize it or not. You don't realize it until you, like, damn, this isn't a book. Yeah. Like, you read these things, they're in books. Like, we're part of history. So the era that we're in calls for
authenticity,
right? 100%. Like that's not what the era back 30, 40 years did. You had to be polished and clean. Like, that's not what the world wants no more. And that's what Democrats keep. You know, Republicans do that, Democrats don't do it. And I saw this, and I think it's genius. J.D. Vance said, yeah, the economy isn't where we need it to be. Yeah, inflation and all of that stuff is up, but it's the Democrats' fault. Why didn't they ever do that when they got back in the White House? Why didn't they talk about all the stimulus checks that caused inflation?
They did. That's what I'm talking
Democrats
about.
did not do that.
No, Biden did it.
He did it. Well, I heard when J.D. Vance did it, it resonated and it cut through. When Biden didn't,
Obama did it.
Obama.
I have no idea what Charlamagne is smoking there at the end, but apparently he has a very selective memory because Biden, Obama, Clinton, they all blamed previous administrations for their own economic woes, okay? But in the case of Joe Biden, he actually has no leg to stand on, and he couldn't come out and say, see, it was the stimulus checks that Donald Trump sent out that caused inflation, because Joe Biden did it too, only worse. As the country was opening, he just issued more stimulus checks, which just exacerbated the problem. And then, of course, you have all of the subsidies going around to help businesses reopen and maintain employees and all of that stuff, which of course was money printed out of thin air, which of course also leads to inflation. So yeah, Joe Biden had no leg to stand on. But I love the fact that Charlamagne and Andrew Schulz are talking about the big lie. All right, the big lie that Joe Biden, of course, he wasn't ill, he wasn't mentally unfit, he was perfectly fine. And now, of course, in all of their books and all of their interviews, they're coming out and saying, yeah, we apparently were lying about all of that. But it's even worse because now they're trying to gaslight and say that, yeah, we always knew, we tried to tell the American people, but no one would listen to us, okay? When, of course, they were the ones blaming us and saying that we were crazy, all right? But now, of course, Kamala Harris has this book, and she's trying to give all of the different excuses as to why she lost, and none of them apparently are falling squarely on her shoulders. And you can tell she's lying again because they bring up the issue of her not going on all of the relevant podcasts, the broadcasts, if you will, right? Joe Rogan, Andrew Schulz, etc. However, she had the offers. And how do we know she's lying about this? It's just like Andrew Schulz said, all right? He says that in the case of Flagrant, we know she is lying because they gave her an invitation. Okay, so why wouldn't she therefore be lying about Joe Rogan as well? So of course we all know that she's lying, but what's the real reason why she lost? Charlamagne actually hits it right on the head. She was the vice president of one of the most unpopular presidents we have ever had in this country. And guess what? She was even less popular than him. But instead, people are going to nominate her, not through a real process. Instead, she was just basically coronated by the DNC, and she became the nominee, and nobody wanted her. And there are still many in the Democrat Party that don't want to take responsibility, that don't want to accept this as true. However, I do want to rewind back to the very beginning of this clip where you have Andrew Schulz saying that, yeah, Trump is dropping the ball. We have the defunding of the deep state. And of course, we also have getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse within our own government. Now, of course, the job is not done yet, but he's well on his way. So the only thing I can think about that Andrew Schulz is referring to is the war in Gaza and the war in Ukraine. And I'll admit, I thought Donald Trump would have those wrapped up by now, but he is making headway. And of course, now we're getting around to the time where, hey, we're going to take off the kid gloves on Russia, at least according to what is being said by the Trump administration in relation to helping Ukraine get more powerful weapons. But in regard to Charlamagne saying, why can the Democrats not pick up the ball? It's because the Democrats have been inundated with DEI hires, people who are elected not based on their intellect and their ability, but rather the color of their skin, their gender, or their sexual orientation. So they don't have the ability to pick up the ball and run with it. And surprisingly enough, we actually have people in the mainstream media who are not as willing to run cover for the Democrat Party as they were previously. So of course, bringing all of this together, you have basically just the failings of the Democrat Party being exposed in a tremendous way. And I absolutely love it. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and say hi to your mom for me. Do you like t-shirts? Of course you do. And now you can support the channel by buying an Angry Teacher t-shirt designed by me, Angry Teacher. So if you like America, if you like freedom, if you like liberty, then go ahead and click the link in the description where all designs, of course, are 100% mother approved. So enjoy yourself and find something you like today.